Welcome everybody to week 3. I'm going to be talking about page 26 in your textbook, and this is going to be one of our first writing assignments that's turned in and graded. You're doing your journals right now, and that's good. But this time we're really going to take a look at a written assignment that delves deeply into words that we use in our writing. So on page 26, this is going to be an assignment that you are going to replicate. In other words, you're going to do one of your own word definitions that you're going to extend, and you're going to use this format that you see on this page. So what is an extended definition? You really are going to use these when you get into the next level of writing. English 200, English 1A, English 1B, your higher levels of English writing will have you use extended definitions when you write all kinds of different reports. You could be doing a summary. You could be an analysis of a reading. You could be doing a compare-contrast. You can be doing something argumentative. There's many different ways that you will use an extended definition in your own writing. So what it is that you take a concept or a word that maybe a lot of people wouldn't know. We can't assume that they know this. And you analyze it. And the way that you analyze this particular word is to take it apart at different levels. So we're going to answer questions based on this word that really delves deeply into the word to give the reader a true understanding of the concept. So the example here is culture shock. Let's say that people that would be reading this particular essay may not be really truly familiar with what culture shock is. They might have a little bit of an understanding, but do they truly know how extensive this word can reach on many different levels, okay? How extensive this is. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to ask several questions about a particular word that you come up with. Now, culture shock is the example here. So the first question is, what is it? And so that's more like its definition. And you would probably look it up in a dictionary or something to that effect, or just use your own words from your idea of what the definition is. And so it says the definition here, it's a feeling of confusion, anxiety that someone may feel when he lives or visits another culture. Why another culture? Because we're talking about culture shock. Okay, that's what it is. But what is it not? And a lot of people don't think about putting this in their essays when they're trying to explain a concept about this word is not this or it's not that. So you can really help define or narrow what this word means. So what this concept is not for culture shock, it's not unusual, it's not an illness, and it's a normal part of an experience of living abroad. So if someone were to experience this type of shock, well, we want the reader to know, hey, this is not unusual, and it's not an illness, and you will get over it. And so it gives them a deeper understanding of what this word can be. And then what we want to do is we want to draw a comparison of this word culture shock to some other kind of experience. So it asks the questions, well, what is it similar to, or what is it not similar to? Well, what it says is if you have ever felt uncomfortable or lost in a new place, like if you were in a new school or a new job, and you don't know anyone, you have come close to understanding what culture shock is. So in this example, they're drawn a parallel or a comparison to, well, it's like feeling lost in a new city or lost on your job or in a new school. It's that same kind of feeling. It's uncomfortable. And then what does it consist of? Now we want to look at it in maybe can we break it down into different stages or phases or different elements of what it is. And not all of the words that you look at can be broken down into phases or stages, but culture shock can be. And in this case, it's saying you can look at it in 4 stages. First, you're excited to be in a new place. And then to complete adjustment. And then this person would go further maybe and saying this is what the 4 stages are. Okay? The characteristics means what would you, it's almost like the symptoms that you would feel. And what the symptoms would be, or the result of these stages would be depression or isolation or confusion. But ultimately, once you get through all that, the traveler is going to have a deeper understanding of his old and his new culture, because you're going to be making these comparisons of what that feels like. So what does it consist of, and what are its characteristics? They can be kind of the same question. It depends on the word. So you will just have to experiment with your word to see if you can actually divide it into what it consists of and what its characteristics are. Now, the examples, you definitely want to be able to provide an example. And this person provides a personal example. It says, when I lived in France, I was embarrassed to speak. If I used the words incorrectly, I thought people would laugh at me. I felt alone. I felt shy. My self-esteem was affected. That kind of thing that you could add as a personal example. Now, how does it work? This goes into the broader scale of your words. So this person's going to take culture shock and say, okay, this is everyone. Anyone who experiences going to a different culture will experience this. But people will go through it in different speeds. And most people will reach a level of being comfortable, and they will adjust eventually. So that's kind of how it works. How it's used, since culture shock is not really used, you're not really going to answer that question, but some of you may choose a word where you will use that particular item, or it might be a thing or a piece of machinery or something else like that. You might be able to use whatever your word is. Okay? And then why is it important? And I think this is another good way of looking at your word, because if you're talking to someone from a different culture and they want to know, well, is that word important? Why should I know that word at such a level? And that's what you're going to write in this box here. It's important to understand culture shock so that you are not surprised when you have these feelings yourself. So this is what this chart consists of. Now for you, what your writing assignment is going to be is you are actually going to go and choose a word from your culture. Okay, and I'm going to provide this template here for you. I'll put a link to it in the course this week. You can make your own. If you don't like working with a Word document, you can make your own, and then you can save it as a PDF, or you can save it as something else. But I prefer you use Word. It's that way I can make comments on your writing when you turn it into me. But there's a few ways that you can turn in this assignment, but I've just made it very convenient for you. So you're going to put your word here, okay? And it could be a word, it is supposed to be a word in your language. So what you'll do is you can type the word using your particular writing, your alphabet, and then you need to translate it in English so I can understand it. So the word might be an idiomatic expression like get lost, or no skin off my nose, or, it could be idiomatic, or it could be a word that expresses love or hatred or anger. It could be something you use in a polite situation, a word that you would use to say hello, but only to certain classes of people. So think of a word from your culture, in your language, and then you're going to, in English, explain that word to a person who doesn't know your word. And you're going to answer, what is your word in your culture, and what is it not compared to English? Okay? What is it similar to or dissimilar to? What does it consist of? What's its characteristics? Give us some examples of your word. How could we see your word being used in your culture? How does it work? Why is that word important in your culture? In other words, your job is to become a teacher and teach me, your student, about this very important word in your culture, or at least a word that you think is important, and give me the understanding by me being able to read this chart and understand that word. Okay, so your goal again is to look something like this at the end. Now, if you turn the page to page 27, I want to show you how a person who wrote a definition paragraph, which is what you guys are going to do, not this week, you're going to use your chart a little bit later on to write a definition paragraph. But let me show you what it looks like in practice. So on page 27, this person chose to write a definition paragraph about language. So they did their homework. Before they wrote this definition paragraph, they answered these questions in a chart. What is language? What is it not? What does it consist of? What are the examples? Why is it important? Okay. So let me walk through it with you so you can get an idea of how they used that chart to write this definition paragraph, which makes your writing so powerful and so intelligent and so academic. And that's why I really want you guys to do this assignment so you can really get a good feel of it. Okay, so what is language? So the person answers it right here. I'm gonna get a marker for you. And it says language is one of the distinguishing capacities of human beings. The dictionary defines language as, and so remember I said that what is, that's going to be your definition, okay? So what is language? We're going to say language is the system of communication in speech and writing that is used by people of a particular country or area. That's what language is. Now I stopped there because it transitioned to, but in reality. That means that there is something that is more. That is not just a system of communication, but there's much more to it. So that's going to help me answer what is language not. So language not is, it's not just communication. So I can say, but in reality, right? It's more than communication. So down here, if I were to answer the chart, what is language not? I would say language is not just communication, but more than that. It's beyond communication. Okay? And I would just stop there. That would be the sentence I would make. Then I can go on to question 3. What does language consist of? Well, when you get the question, what does language consist of means comprises. Comprises is the same as consists of, okay? So a particular language comprises not only of grammar, vocabulary, but also aspects of the speaker's culture, their tradition, their knowledge, their rules of behavior, their forms of social interaction. So all of this is what language comprises of, what it consists of, what are its characteristics. Remember I said that on this page over here, what does it consist of and what are its characteristics? That can be one and the same, okay? So if you want to combine these two, that's okay. So coming back here, this is what it consists of. It consists of culture, traditional knowledge, rules of behavior, and forms of social interaction. So if I was making a chart for this, if I was going to make a chart for it, I would put that under what does language consist of. There's something else here I want to show you. It also said not only. You could have actually put this not only grammar and vocabulary, you could have actually put this, what is language not? You could have said language is not just communication, it's not just grammar and vocabulary. Because these negatives here, but in reality, not only, these tell us what something is not. It's not just that, okay? Now down to 4, what are some examples of language? Well, how do we find that? Well, we can find that down here. For instance just means for example, right? It's the same way of saying for example. So they gave the Moravo language as an example, and they said, how does Moravo understand fish behavior? Or in Japanese, the complex system of honorifics, that means how you use people's names to indicate the relationship you are between that speaker and listener. They use different suffixes for that to express the complex social rules that are important in that country. Okay, so those are examples of language. So they use Moravo to understand fish behavior, and they use Japanese to understand the complex system of greeting people in the Japanese culture. What kind of language do they use to make that so important? And now the last thing, why is language important? They say it down here. The deeper definition, I'll put that in blue, the deeper definition of language helps explain why translation is so difficult and why so much human knowledge is lost when language dies. That's why language is so important. So here you have an example. Now, this is a higher level example, everybody. This is an example from a college textbook, and you may not be able to write at this level of language yet, and that's okay. I don't want you to feel that I expect you to write exactly at this level, but it's a good model for you. So I want you to do the best you can, but look how highly academic, look this, how intelligent, how sophisticated this one paragraph looks by just giving a definition of a term that we're using in our writing. And this is going to be powerful for you to use. You see that? So now when you guys get to your assignment here, and you choose your word from your culture, okay, like Anyo Haseyo or Konnichiwa or Salam, or choose a word in your culture that you use all the time, but maybe someone who is English speaking does not understand. So again, your job is to be a teacher. Teach me about your culture through defining an important word. All right, I hope you find this helpful. This is going to be due in about 1 week. I might give it 1 week to 10 days just to make sure that you guys are really working hard on this. And you will be able to turn this in the assignment area in the course. So when you go to turn in your word chart, you're going to go into the modules, go under week 3, and then move down to assignments week 3, and then you'll see here, turn it in word chart assignment. You're going to click on that, and a new screen's going to open. In the upper right hand side, you're going to see Submit Assignment. It's the blue button. Click on that. Then you're going to see the file upload. And from the file upload, you're going to choose a file. So you click on that. And your files will open. And go ahead and select your WordShot file that you have on your computer. And select that. And just say Open. On the upper right hand side of the screen, you will see Submission and a little check mark which will say Submitted. Now it will have a date, and the date in this picture is not your date, but your date will show up there. You'll also see that there is the blue bar right at the top that says Resubmit Assignment. So once you submit this assignment, you can, once you get your results back, as far as it checks you for different things, especially if there's any amount of information that you used that was not originally yours, you can rewrite this and resubmit the assignment as long as you do it by the deadline. What you're going to be looking for is this new window to open where it shows you that the name of your file has been submitted. It's on that blue link in the left-hand side of the page. And then you're going to wait till it has a red box or a different colored box, which will give you a percentage. The percentage will tell you how much of the material is unique and not unique. Your goal is 0, but sometimes it won't be right at 0 because there's some information that may be the same just because you have to be talking about the same topic. But the higher it goes, the more it shows that you're using information directly from a dictionary or the internet or something else like that. So the higher that number gets, the worse it is, okay? So you want to keep that number low as possible. All right, so that's submitting the assignment. You can resubmit the assignment 2 or 3 different times, but then on the due date, you're going to definitely, by the due date, I will lock the assignment and you can't submit it after the due date. Okay, so I can start looking at the assignments, grading the assignments, and have the right submission draft by the due date. Okay, so I look forward to getting your word chart documents. It's a really fun assignment for me to read because it's a word that's in your language. You're teaching me something and your fellow students something, and I always learn a great deal by the words that you like in the language that you want to share with us.